My understanding is that the Trump administration has, I think, 13 billionaires in office right now leading government agencies. Is that about right? I have no idea, Senator. I think that's what the number is. Do you think it's a coincidence, given the large number of billionaires in the Trump administration, that this particular piece of legislation would provide $135 billion in tax breaks to the top 1% by expanding the exemptions in the estate tax? Senator, I will tell you that when the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, my tax rate went up. Well, I don't know your exact situation, but I can tell you. How many people do you think are in the top 1% who would benefit from this particular $135 billion tax break? I know the top 10% is now paying 7% total tax. My question is, why? Do you think, at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, when people like yourself economically have never had it so good, why do you think it's a good idea to cut Medicaid for low-income and working-class people by $700 billion to give $235 billion in tax breaks to the very richest people in this country, perhaps a few hundred families? Please justify that and tell me about that. Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billionaires. You chose not to. I am not talking about a wealth tax. Explain why a few hundred of the wealthiest families in this country would receive a $235 billion tax break. Explain to the American people why you think that's a great idea. I think that this will increase small businesses substantially. Most small businesses have zero to do with this. Come on, you're smarter than that. This is the top 0.1%. This is not a mom and pop store. These are multi-billionaires, and the savings go to their kids after they pass away. This is nothing more than a gift to billionaires in this country. Well, sir, that's just not correct, because the top 10% paid a bigger share of taxes after TCJA. I'm talking about one provision in this. I don't want to argue with you about taxes in general. One provision, a few hundred families, $235 billion in tax breaks. You can't justify that because, morally, it is totally unjustifiable. Let me ask you another question. If you guys want to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, the estimate from the CBO, I believe, is that over 15 million people would lose their health insurance? Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania estimated that when you throw that many low-income and working-class people off of health care, some 50,000 people a year will die. Tell me why you think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to billionaires and allow 50,000 low-income and working-class people to die unnecessarily. Senator, first of all, that's overstated by 5.1 million. That is not attributed to this bill. It's simply a combination. No. You all had a scheduled expiration of Obamacare subsidies, and you did not extend that when you were in charge. 5.1 million. 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. And there are work requirements. Our goal is to get more money to children. Really? Your goal is to get more money to children? Yeah. And working people? Really? Come on. Do you know how many people, and I was surprised to hear this, I don't know if you know it or not, how many people lose their jobs every year? Quit or get fired or whatever. Do you have any idea? Well, there's something called the quit rate. And when the job market is strong, more people quit. But yeah, I was surprised. I just researched this. I don't know if you happen to know it. I don't know the number. I was surprised. Would it be shocking to you? It was to me. 20 million people leave their jobs a year. Doesn't shock you, right? It's a big labor force, right? So somebody leaves the job. Maybe they move. Maybe something happens in their lives, right? We have a lot of transition in the labor market, correct? Maybe they get a better job, right? Exactly. Maybe they do, or maybe they have to stay home because their wife gets sick. Whatever. We don't know. But 20 million people lose their jobs in a given year. Are those people lazy? What happens when I leave my job and maybe I have to move to another state to take care of my ill mother and I desperately need Medicaid? Am I too lazy now to be able to get Medicaid? I think that's a mischaracterization of the work requirement. Really? Well, I'm not quite so sure. It is. I don't. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Also, I want to ask about the Republican Big Beautiful Bill, which will knock about 16 million people off their health care coverage and cut programs that keep groceries cheaper for millions of families in order to try to pay for about $4 trillion in tax giveaways that are mostly going to be sucked up by millionaires, billionaires, and wealthy corporations. So, Mr. Besson, Secretary Besson, I'd like to start with a very simple question. Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit? There are varying scorings on that. Senator, you're the Secretary of the Treasury, so I'm asking you, what is your view? Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit? It is my view that over the 10-year window, it will decrease. Do you have anybody who agrees with you on this? Yes, ma'am. Let me ask my question. Every credible independent expert agrees that Trump and the Republicans' big beautiful bill would add trillions of dollars to the national debt. It would not even come close to paying for itself. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the Penn-Wharton budget model, and the Yale Budget Lab all agree on this, and they're looking at 10-year windows. Thank you. So do the Conservative Tax Foundation and the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget conservative groups. Even Elon Musk and the Wall Street Journal are criticizing the bill for ballooning the national debt. The only people who are saying publicly that it's not going to add to the national debt are you, Donald Trump, and the Republicans in Congress. Do you have an independent group that has put forward numbers that disagrees with all of these conservative groups and disagrees with the Wall Street Journal on this? Well, Senator, interesting to see you align with Elon Musk, but if I am, you're no more shocked than I am. If we want to take the full Congressional Budget Office scoring, they predict 10. I don't agree with their methodology. They predict a $2.4 trillion deficit. But okay, so the answer is no. But may I finish? They have also scored $1.8 trillion in tariff income. So even in Washington, D.C., math, that is a $400 billion surplus. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. You admit this bill will increase the deficit by $2.4 trillion, but you think there will be another bill and another set of agreements that somehow materialize. They haven't materialized so far. Don't have any statutory authority, but that will make up the difference. So, the answer to the original question, will this bill increase or decrease the deficit? I think you just said it will increase the deficit. I want to use all the CBO scoring, and you can't take one without the other. I don't agree with the CBO. One is the law that we are scoring. The bill that is in front of us, we don't have a tariff bill in front of us to score, Mr. Secretary. Let me go on to the second question. You have said that government spending is out of control. You have also called government spending unsustainable. In fact, in the name of fiscal responsibility, you're working with the Republicans on this big beautiful bill to pass the biggest cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act in American history. So, Mr. Secretary, help me understand here. Why is the national debt so very important? That you're trying to kick 16 million people off their health insurance, but increasing the national debt doesn't seem to matter if you're cutting taxes for billionaires and billionaire corporations? Well, first of all, a huge portion of this goes to family-owned businesses that are pass-through entities that are below that level, Senator. And I am sure you share my goals of Main Street prosperity. I'm glad to do tax cuts for people of modest means. The question I'm asking is, why does the deficit not matter to you when we're talking about knocking 16 million people off their health care? But it matters not if we're cutting taxes for billionaires? Well, first of all, that figure is overstated by 5.1 million. That is the amount not attributable to provisions in the state. So, you think it's okay just to simply help? First of all, let's set that straight. Work requirements account for 8 million of CBO's claim number. Again, we're creating an economy that promotes clear, Secretary, that you don't want to answer the question. Senator, I am answering it. No, you're not. And what I want is for Medicaid to be used for mothers and children as it was meant, not for 1.4 million illegal aliens, not for able-bodied people. Medicaid is not used for people who are not documented, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say here, the part that troubles me the most is that the Secretary is deeply worried about the deficit and is willing to knock 16 million, or he says, merely 11 million people off their health care. That matters so much, but it doesn't matter so much if you're cutting taxes for billionaires. Then it's okay to run up a big deficit. I think that's wrong. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to not miss out on top-tier analyzers of politics, and just to see you in the next video where we'll continue exploring showdowns that change how the world sees.